All right, all eyes on Capitol Hill right now. You see that podium there, waiting to see if we hear from Paul Ryan, the House Speaker. Again, he canceled the press conference an hour ago, and then after that, that vote on the Republican replacement plan, Republican replacement health care plan, scheduled for tonight, now postponed. Major development here. Joining us from Capitol Hill, Dan Kildee. He's a Democratic congressman from Michigan. Congressman, thanks for taking a few minutes. What are you folks on your side of the aisle hearing about what's going on right now?
Well, just that the Republicans cannot seem to put together a piece of legislation that they themselves can support. They met with the president today. The Freedom Caucus did. No progress. I mean, I think the message here is that you take a really bad piece of legislation that makes things worse for Americans who simply want health care, that transfers wealth in a massive way to the richest Americans, and it's hard to get it passed by Congress. No kidding. And so I think their problem isn't so much that they can't negotiate or that they can't figure out how to work the process. Their problem is they have a really bad piece of legislation, and that's not going to change unless they change course.
As a practical matter, though, you know, there's the legislation itself, and then there is the pressure that can be applied. If you're a Republican right now, from a Republican president, a Republican White House, Republican leaders in the chamber who can have all sorts of perks, they have all sorts of privileges that they can dole out. If this becomes the priority and the cause for President Trump, for Speaker Ryan, over the next 24, 48, 72 hours, practically speaking, do you think they do have the power to get enough Republicans on board?
Well, I know they're trying to do that, and they're using every tool they have. But there's one element of the pressure that is the most significant element. And while all eyes might be on the Capitol, all eyes in the Capitol are focused on 435 congressional districts, where people are hearing from their constituents, and it's coming loud and clear they don't like this legislation. So they can do what they want. They can offer all the incentives, the inducements, whatever you want to call it. But if the people back home don't want this legislation, the folks in Congress, or at least a number of them, enough, aren't going to go for it.
What happens if this plan is pulled permanently, if it's scrapped, if it goes to a vote and it fails, if this plan does not get through the House this weekend, early next week? What happens next? Have Democrats thought through to that step? Do Democrats then reach out to Republicans? Is there some sort of gesture about, can we find a way to work together? Or do you think Republicans will just come up with another version on their own again? Where do you think things would go then?
It's really hard to figure out what path they would be on, because they have a leader in Donald Trump who just really doesn't understand the process of government. So it's hard to predict. But I will say this. Democrats then and now have always stood ready to find ways to improve health care in America. Every piece of major legislation ever enacted, whether it's Social Security in the 1930s or Medicare in the 1960s, always needs to be modified. We're willing to work with Republicans to come up with solutions to make the Affordable Care Act more effective. That really, I think, ought to be the next step. But, you know, I think Republicans in some ways maybe have painted themselves into a corner where they're so committed to repealing the Affordable Care Act that they really don't care what they replace it with, even if it's nothing. That's a really dangerous thing. 24 million people losing their health care is a really dangerous thing.
All right, Dan Kildee, Democratic congressman from Michigan, joining us from Capitol Hill again.